Should all abortions be illegal? For example, ectopic pregnancies. You may know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, because we didn't have a lot of time to address a lot of the issues up in the prepared remarks. My view, which I believe is a pro-life view, is that all abortions should be illegal except in the instance where the life of the mother is at stake. Now, some people might perceive this to be an inconsistency in my position, but I want to explain to you why it's not. The rationale behind this is that in the event of an ectopic pregnancy, which is precisely the one that was mentioned in the question, this is where the unborn human being is growing in a location other than the lining of the uterus, where it's supposed to be. So perhaps it could be in the uterine tube, or it could be in the abdominal wall of the mother. And when the unborn is growing in that location, this presents a life-threatening situation for the mother. Now, in this case, I would say yes, I'd be in favor of a medical abortion, not an elective abortion. So I'm opposed to all elective abortions, but this constitutes a medical abortion. Now, my rationale is this. It's better that one should live, the mother, than two should die, both mother and child. And in the case of an ectopic pregnancy, the child is going to die no matter what. There is no possible way with our current level of technology that we can save the life of the unborn and transplant them into the uterus where they'll grow normally. And since the unborn is going to die no matter what, my view is that we're really facing the situation where if we do not act, both the mother and child could die. But if we do act and perform the medical abortion, then we can kill the unborn in that instance for the sake of saving the life of the mother. So this is a moral dilemma. You have two competing situations, neither of which are desirable, but giving that the greater good is to save the life of one rather than allowing two should die. So that would be the only exception.
Thank you. This is for Professor Chadwick. It says, doesn't a mother have an obligation to care for her unborn child? This mother-child relationship, we're talking about, maybe if you write that, demonstrates we are thinking about two persons, not one. Apologize for that.
Yes. Women have a responsibility to care for their children, I think, in the same way that fathers have a responsibility to care for their children. Do fathers always care for their children? No, unfortunately not. So yes, women do have that responsibility. When you're talking about pregnancy, does a woman have the responsibility to care for her fetus? Because it's important to make that distinction, because it's a child when a fetus is born, it becomes a child. So absolutely. And so when we talk about access to prenatal care, if we want the state to be involved in determining that they ought to be protecting the life of the fetus, then should the state also be invested in prenatal care? I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of babies born in this country every single year addicted to drugs. So we just have to ask ourselves, it's not an issue of should a woman care for the fetus growing inside of her. The fetus growing inside of a woman is going to develop or not develop, certainly based on a woman's decisions. How she chooses to live her life, what kinds of food she eats, the kinds of drugs that she takes. So to say something so broad that doesn't a woman have a responsibility to care for a child? I mean, is so overly general that it would be impossible to answer that question in any sort of clear format. So I can answer for myself. I felt a responsibility, absolutely, to eat well. It turns out that Entenmann's donuts were the only thing that kind of quelled my nausea, unfortunately, but I wanted to eat broccoli and really eat healthy, and I wanted to do those things. But, to say that these things are automatically linked, I don't think is the case. I don't think every woman feels a connection, an automatic connection to the growing fetus inside of her. I don't know if that answers your question.
Right. Alan, if a woman is raped, why should one be forced to be reminded of that horrific event every single day for 9 months?
I don't know if you want me to answer this again. I think I sort of addressed it already. But again, rape is not the issue. Incest is not the issue. All these things are simply a distraction from the key question, what is the unborn? Because again, as I pointed out, if the unborn are human beings, just like you and me, you can't kill the unborn simply because that unborn human being was conceived through rape. And I remember I gave the illustration if we had a 3-year-old child here, and this child was conceived through rape and incest. Let's make it as horrible as you want to make it. we would not say that the mother can kill this 3-year-old girl just because she was conceived through rape or just because it'll remind her of that rape for the rest of her life, which is assuming that's the case. Well, if we can't kill a 3-year-old because of rape and incest, then we shouldn't be able to kill the unborn because of rape and incest, if it's the case that the unborn are just like the 3-year-olds. And that's what I argue scientifically and philosophically that they are.
All right. Cecili, Professor Chadwick, it seems you justify abortion because of rape. However, you haven't thought about giving a baby abortion. This would also reduce abortions. You haven't thought about giving baby on abortion. Adoption. Now, I'm not a college professor. I can't read some of your writings. On adoption. This will also reduce abortions. Adoptions, that is.
I personally don't think we can make those decisions for women. I don't think that we should, absolutely, as I said earlier, that we should create the best options for women. If a woman wants to carry a pregnancy to term and give that baby up for adoption, we should absolutely provide for that opportunity to do that. I'm fully supportive of that. There are many children who remain in social service programs because they're waiting to be adopted, and children who aren't being cared for because everybody wants a newborn baby. What we have to always remind ourselves, though, is that when are we protecting these lives and when aren't we protecting lives? And as I brought up before in the issues of wars and violence against women and all of the things that for pennies a day we could address, issues of poverty and starvation that we don't deal with, the really easy things, the really difficult, complicated, and messy things, which happen to be, under the control of women and how they choose to, what they choose to do with their bodies becomes a heavily debated issue in ways that are quite suspect to me as a pro-choicer. So yes, I think that adoption should be an option for women who want to go that route, but I don't think that should be the only option. I think that women have to be able to have control over their reproductive fate, and we need to treat women like they're adults and that they can make those decisions for themselves, and that those conversations happen between a woman and her doctor and her partner and her family in these smaller communities, and not by the state. The goal is to reduce abortions. We can do this, but it's not by making it illegal. The fact that drugs are illegal, does that reduce the prevalence of it on this campus, in the dorms? Probably not. Probably doesn't reduce the number of drugs that people are taking. So using the law, I don't feel like is the right answer. A student was telling me that back home in Iran, where abortions are illegal, that she feels like abortions are twice as likely to happen, that so many women obtain abortions. And so a lot of times these become like religiously motivated because people are so ashamed of having an unwanted pregnancy that the only option is to get rid of that pregnancy so that they don't shame their families. And this is a very unfortunate occurrence. If we have access to contraception and education, these might go down.
One more question, and we probably will have to go. Who's going to look out for the baby? That is, let's redefine that. Who's going to look out for the fetus? What about adoption? Should the community have any involvement or say about the fetus that may become part of the community in the future?
My position is no. The fetus is a part of the woman's body. It's the woman's decision to make about whether or not to bring that fetus into the world. That's my position, and I think that we ought to trust women a little bit more to be able to make those decisions for themselves. These decisions, again, I'll reiterate, they do not come lightly. The decision to have an abortion and to insist so adamantly in choosing this perspective of being in support of life seems disingenuous in some respects, especially when you have abortion clinic bombings and the targeting of abortion doctors and the killing of them, which is very common. So if we are going to support life, I think we support the life of the woman and give her the credit that she deserves to make decisions for herself.
All right, I think that concludes the debate.